Have you ever seen something like this and wondered what in the world these strange markings are that look like something from an astrophysics calculation? That's how I felt the first time a lead sheet was put in front of me. Coming from a classical background and being a good sight reader, I relied on seeing complete notation. But the sheet had slashes, weird markings, a key signature on the first line only, a single note line, and no left hand. Plus the whole thing was just one page, and I was thoroughly confused. I'm also pretty sure that I cried when I saw it. Now, if you've never read from a lead sheet, this might all sound familiar to you. The good news is that today, we're going to learn about what a lead sheet is, how it's used, and how we can make music from it. A lead sheet is usually one page, and sometimes two if the form is longer. You'll see the time signature and the key signature are only present one time, and that's at the beginning of the tune. Sometimes in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the tempo and/or the groove marking. Now, groove means what style you're going to play. So, for example, you might see medium swing or bossa nova. Sometimes these are left out because jazz wasn't originally learned from lead sheets. It was passed on by ear. So you were just supposed to know the groove based on the song. And to be fair, learning by ear is the OG way of playing jazz anyway, and it still continues today. Lead sheets can also be compiled into books, which are called fake books. One of the most popular fake books is called The Real Book, which is pretty indicative of jazz humor. The most common one is the Real Book 6th edition, but there are many others out there. The notation you see is the melody only, and we call this the head. The chords above coincide with the measure they're in, and depending on what count the chord symbol is over, that determines what beat you will change your chord. These chord symbols are often referred to as changes. So if you hear someone say, "What are the changes?" or "Just play the changes," that is referring to the chords and the form. Unlike in other types of music, where each instrument has its own notated part, lead sheets are general information, and all instruments can play from the same sheet. Here's how that works. Let's say we have a jazz combo consisting of bass, drums, piano, and sax. When starting out a tune, typically the sax will play the melody, the piano will play chords underneath, and that's called comping. That's a term that's short for accompanying and complementing. This provides chord structure and support. The bass will play a bass line based on what the chord symbols are, and the drummer uses the lead sheet to know the form of the song and also keep tabs on the groove. Now you might be thinking, that's cool, but that's a really short song. Aren't jazz tunes much longer? Well, you're totally correct. Even though the song form is 1 or 2 pages, it doesn't stop there. After the head is played, it's open for solos, which means whoever has the solo is improvising using the chord structure of the form. And then the entire form is repeated over and over until someone comes back in with the head at the end, and we call that the head out. The order of solos is determined by the players, but it's common for the person that played the melody to take the first solo, although you will hear versions where that's not the case. I like to think of lead sheets as suggestions. You'll find that many jazz standards have pretty basic rhythms for the melodies, but if you listen to somebody playing the song, it sounds much cooler and syncopated. Sometimes you might even hear a few bars of the recognizable head, but then a few bars of improv after that, where the melody usually is. This is common and depends on whatever the player is feeling at the time. As far as the chords go, many of the chords are basic 7th chords. Now in jazz, we like to push the envelope and come up with new and fresh sounds. So it actually means at least play a 7th chord. You'll hear people playing 9th, 11th, and 13th chords, even when the lead sheet just says 7th chord, and that's completely normal. It's also common to put in chord substitutions if the player is at a level where they're comfortable with that. And with regard to the groove, even if it says medium swing, maybe the band wants to play it as a funk groove that night. Oh, and with lead sheets, there is rarely an intro or an outro that's written out. That's something the band decides on beforehand or on the spot. You also might see some slashes here and there. Slashes indicate timing, so if you see this, that just means you play that chord for the entire measure. It's not an indicator of rhythm. But if you do see one like this, then you'll play the chords where the rhythm is notated. Now, just because there are 4 slashes here, it doesn't mean you should play the chord 4 times. So you can see that everything is up for change, and that's what feels daunting if you're just starting out. You might be at a point where you're just getting comfortable learning 7th chords in root position, or even triads, and that is great. I'm going to show some lead sheet navigation tips for complete newbies that don't know 7th chords yet, for those that do know 7th chords, and then I'll show an example of how someone who is comfortable with doing all of the options I mentioned a few minutes ago may look at a lead sheet and play it. Okay, for the newbies, play the melody exactly as written in your right hand. Now, if you're freaked out by chords right now, it's okay. Just play the root of the chord. Play through the head 1 time this way, then stop. Anytime you see a chord, play the root of that chord. Sometimes it will be on beat 1, sometimes beat 3. Here's an example. Now let's say you're cool with triads. Ignore everything that says 7, 9, flat 9, and anything you don't know. If you see a letter with a minus sign, or MI, that means the base of the chord is a minor triad. If you just see a letter with a 7 or a major 7, drop the 7 and play a major triad. DIM means diminished, so you will play a diminished triad. If you see something that says minor 7 flat 5, for now, just play a diminished triad. Now, go through the head again. Your left hand playing triads as whole notes or half notes if there are 2 chords per bar. And your right hand will play the melody. Do this 1 time and then stop. Here is an example. Now, if you haven't learned seventh chords or need a decoding ring to figure out what the symbols mean, check the description of this video and there's a free PDF that has the chord symbols, what they look like, and what they mean. Okay, now let's say you're pretty decent with seventh chords and you can play most of them in root position. Go through the tune, play the chords in root position as whole or half notes, then play the head in the right hand. Here's an example. Now for the next level, I'm going to play you an example of what it might sound like if someone gets a lead sheet and has worked on different voicings. Voicings means the order and the structure of chords. And if this person also has a jazz vocabulary and is comfortable with improv, rhythms, and styles, you'll see how different this is from the lead sheet, although the structure will remain the same. I'll play an outro and an intro that's not on the lead sheet, so you can hear what that might sound like out in the wild as well. I'll play through the form 2 times. The first time will be the head. The second time through, I will improvise over the first half of the form. Then I will play the melody on the second part of it, which is the head out. And then as I get to the end, I will do an outro. Hopefully this helped you to understand lead sheets and what they are and how they are used. Try out the examples on your favorite tunes that you can find lead sheets for. You can get the Real Book 6th edition, and another one I like is the New Real Book. That has lyrics along with the melodies and it's really nice. You could even get a fake book of Disney songs. There are a ton of options out there. The more that you get comfortable with chords, the more your musical world will open up. Good luck, and remember to have fun with this. If you get frustrated, back up, break it down. Work through the chords so you know what they are, then try to play them in order as they are on the lead sheet. You can take the songs in sections, or you can play the whole thing. However you break it down so that it makes sense to you while learning is the best way. This will also help you to understand your own learning process so that you can take that into account with future concepts. Have fun, and I'll see you in the next lesson.